At this conference, we've tried to combine different types of presentations. So there are technical presentations, there are presentations regarding design, regarding management, system thinking. So just trying to, for every one of you, to get some interesting insights and information. And the next presentation will be a kind of an experiment because it will be online from the screen in real time. We will talk with Jose from Shopify. And yeah, unfortunately, Jose didn't manage to come here due to quite complicated flights and all that stuff. So he will be speaking online. Usually, we're not doing that. We're doing that only for the greatest people ever, because we believe that being on stage is really the perfect thing. Online does not transmit all of the energy, but we will try, and I'm sure Jose can do that. So if we're ready technically, because I already see Jose on the screen here. Yeah, and you can see Jose here. Yeah, so let's give it a try. Thank you. Jose, welcome.
Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. And so thanks for having me, first of all, and like for having me online. It was definitely complicated to figure out the flights, but I'm happy that we made it work this way. So my name is Jose. I'm a designer currently working at Shopify in the Polaris team, which, if you don't know, is our main design system. And today I'm here to talk to you about something that I really care about, pegs. You know, those things that you can use to hang clothes. Why do I want to talk about pegs? Well, because most people like to compare design systems to Lego, but I see them a little differently. Because when I was a kid, my family didn't really have a lot of money to spare on toys, so pegs became my version of Lego. I made up characters, I built objects and worlds, and they worked for me, and basically became my play system. It was definitely more limited than Lego, but that never stopped me from having fun. I just had to be creative, and after watching my daughter, I can tell you that it's not. It's something that comes naturally to children. Pegs, to me, feel like a better representation of most design systems around, because like pegs, they are not as comprehensive as Lego, but we can still accomplish a lot with them. I mean, just look at all the things that we have accomplished thanks to design systems. We made our products more consistent, so there is less unique solutions to similar problems. We made design and development faster, and we free designers and developers to focus on bigger and more hairy problems. And this is amazing. And Polaris at Shopify is proof of that. It didn't just help scale Shopify's experience, it also powers a lot of apps built by Shopify and also third-party developers. Also, it's used in a bunch of internal tools that we have, not to speak of all the design systems that use Polaris as an inspiration, as a starting point. But give it enough time and scale, and you may start seeing things evolve. The consistency that I was talking about becomes monotony, and we start lacking variety and intent in our solutions. The speed becomes a rush because the momentum that we get used to hinders teams from building the best possible solution to their problems. And instead of being free to innovate, designers and developers become imprisoned within the boundaries of the system. It's fine. Seriously, I like to think that most things in life are a process, not a destination. So we can always learn and get better. But to do that, we need to acknowledge this fire around us. And to me, that means accepting three things. First is that a design system is just a tool. Don't get me wrong, it's more of a power tool, but it still doesn't do the work for you. At best, a design system can only augment what you have to offer as designers and developers. Here's an example that hopefully helps me prove my point. As you can probably tell by now, I like to draw, and that's why I illustrated all this talk. And sometimes I post things online, and when I do, there's a type of comment that I get often. Basically, people asking me what app or what brushes I use on my illustrations. It's a bit of a classic, and I know it's a common question that a lot of creatives and even athletes get. And I get it. Everyone likes shortcuts, and tools can feel like that sometimes. But it's a fallacy. Just imagine you give a phone to a professional photographer and the best camera in the world to a random person you find on the street. You would still expect the professional to take better photos, right? Why is that? Because there's more to photography than just the gear. At the end of the day, tools matter much less than the knowledge and skills that one has to offer. And design and development are no different, which means that a design system on its own will never be able to be a synonym for quality. Because you can't expect a system to do the job of designers and developers. And Polaris is no exception. Most designers joining Shopify these days already know Polaris. And personally, I see that a bit as a blessing and a curse, because that establishes a bit too much reverence for the design system, reverence that helps feeding the preconception that you can start solving problems straight from our UI kit. I mean, technically you can, but you really shouldn't. Not if you want to solve problems in a meaningful way. Design systems should be there to help, but designers and developers still need to do the actual work. They can't take the backseat, they need to drive. They need to be intentional in the way that they solve problems and advocate always for the best possible solutions, which sometimes actually means going beyond the design system, in this case, going beyond Polaris and beyond what's in the UI kit for designers. And speaking of UI kit, that actually takes me to the second thing we need to accept, that a design system is more than just a UI kit. The real source of truth lives in the product, not on Figma files, because that's what people actually experience. Knowing that, on my team, we want to find out how much of the real product was actually referencing Polaris. So we started to measure it. And for that, we built this dashboard that captures the information. And after doing this, we discovered that Polaris covered only less than 49% of our admin experience. Fortunately, you wouldn't really be able to tell that just by looking at the product, but we still see anything that is less than 90% as a problem. Because when we want to make sweeping changes across the experience, it's harder than it should be. The good news is that we've been working through this year to improve this, so the number is getting higher, but it's still like something that we're trying to solve. Now, this isn't just a problem of product teams not building with Polaris. This is happening because the design system isn't serving them well enough, and it's not meeting them where they work. So there's no real guarantee that things are being built systematically. If your system only serves designers, so if it's just a Figma UI kit, then you're doing it wrong. Now, beyond the live product, it's also very important to capture and document the context that leads to your decisions. The product is just the what, but people also need to understand the how and the why. Otherwise, teams may start to operate under inaccurate assumptions, and that never leads to the best results. The larger your organization or your company gets, the more important it is to make that content easily accessible. And I really mean easily. On my team, we do quite a bit on our site, and we've been working on our site through this year, so the site already looks different than what this image is. But we also want to do much better because we know that it doesn't matter how much you document if people don't bother to read it. A lot of the questions that we get from folks using Polaris are often answered by someone simply sharing a link, which means that some of the answers are in our documentation, but people don't read it, or most likely they can't find it, which to me is a signal that we all need to think about context sharing as a product of its own right and design it accordingly. Because our users, in this case, designers and developers, need to understand not just what is the current solution, but also what led to it, and also find it really easy. Only with that context, then they are able to know whether they should follow or question a system decision. Yes, I'm saying that people should question the design system. We need the system's users to help improve the system, and for that, they need to feel empowered to challenge it and understand that design systems are not a religion. We're looking for users' trust, not blind faith. And this actually leads me to the third thing we all must accept, is a design system is always incomplete. Which, if you're working in design systems, it's a good thing. It's never done. From what I see, we have been approaching design systems as architects or engineers. We design it, we build it, and then we just need to do some maintenance from time to time. But this results in something very rigid that doesn't thrive on change. A digital product, on the other hand, remains relevant by continuously evolving and adapting to fulfill user needs. And a design system powers digital products, but they can't predict the future. So we can't expect a design system to solve all the problems. Now, let me give you an example straight from our site, from Polaris. So we have a layout component, which we built with a fairly good range of options. But as our product grows in complexity, we see teams needing to have a bit more control over page layouts, like doing something as simple as having 2 sections with different amounts of columns. To do this today, they need to build something custom, which doesn't help our coverage goal I was mentioning earlier. This tool that we built allows us to highlight the hard-coded solutions in orange and helps also illustrate the problem a bit better. You see everything that is green is in the design system. It's like what we call in mainline. Everything is orange, is not. And this is expensive to build, also to maintain. But if you look at it, it doesn't look expensive, does it? This ends up just reinforcing that my point that design systems need to be easy to evolve and adapt. So on my team, we want to approach it less like building and more like a communal garden. Let me explain. A gardener plants seeds and tends to them. They know what they planted, but they don't really know what they are going to harvest. It really depends on like the weather and also like the actual plants. So they find out as things start to grow, and then they intervene when they need to water plants, remove weeds, or make changes in the ground to help plants grow along. In this metaphor, our plants are the products that get built with Polaris. So we want to make sure that the design system provides them with enough substance to grow. But it's also important to recognize that in this communal garden, every designer and developer is also feeding off of it. So they must also help maintain it and expand it. which means if you see a problem, don't just like let it stay there, help fix it before it gets too big. And if you want to go beyond what's in the system, also make sure that you're doing it with intent and that you consider how that affects the system as a whole, and even think about contributing to the design system. In a communal garden, everyone owns a communal garden, and the same should be applied to a design system. Now, let me just quickly recap the things that I'm saying that we need to accept. So a design system is just a tool. It's more than a UI kit and always incomplete. And on my team, we accepted this, and we realized that Polaris was being seen as more, but we're working on aligning expectations, or we've been working through this year to do that. Internally, we say this quite a lot. Polaris is the floor, not the ceiling, but these words can only go so far. So through this year, we've been acting to make this more of a reality. So now I'll tell you how we're trying to solve these three problems that I highlighted in the beginning. The first thing, we're working on breaking that monotony by helping teams be more intentional. As a first step, we started partnering with product teams working on product features as a way to get closer to our system users and learn from them, but also to augment our message and give teams more confidence to actually solve problems before they start worrying about the design system. We called it Polaris Lab, and the point of this was basically to design side by side with product teams, and then also like build to a certain extent. So we can show them what we mean when we say that Polaris is just a floor, not a ceiling. Because showing is much more powerful than just telling. Our very first partnership was focused on layout, like the problem that was mentioned, like highlighting earlier. And I actually posted a case study exactly about this in our UX blog. So if you're curious to know more of the details, go have a read. But I'll give you a short summary. So together with the product team, we started by breaking down their previous solution and try to revisit the jobs to be done in their experience. We were very critical about the amount of information we kept because to improve layout, you need to start from that information layer. You can't just move things around and hope that solves problems. So for this, we made sure to spend enough time experimenting and sketching before we started looking at the design system. Because that's how people should be designing, and they need to be system aware, not system dependent. And we worked through a good amount of iterations, and through that process, I was able to learn a lot about what people needed from the system and what's holding them back. So we can leverage that knowledge and evolve the system to meet their needs. This is their initial solution, what it looked like. It looks like a lot of other pages that we have in our experience, like this order or this customer page. And this was it. Because, the problem is that they are common. So not because they are the best possible solution, and I know this is true for a lot of teams designing with design systems. They just look at what exists and they just end up doing a lot of copy-paste design, which is unfortunate. But working together, we found a more intentional solution, which still feels like Polaris and it feels like it's part of the admin and it belongs there, but it solves their problem much better. Consistency is different than sameness. Now, with that said, finding a better layout here was just the start. We learned more about their needs, and we're also building layout foundations, which we have some of them are already out, others are in beta. But the idea is that my team then built some layout foundations that can support teams building more intentional solutions like this, but still being within Polaris, so they are not breaking away or creating custom solutions. But beyond shipping that solution, we also want to make this collaboration visible, sharing not just what we made, but also how and why. That's exactly why I wrote that case study and shared it on our UX blog, hoping that helps promoting and scaling this new mindset across the organization, so other teams can replicate it. The second problem I mentioned was rushing to ship. Now, to slow down that rush, we're starting to consider more than speed, like quality, for instance. Now, quality can be really hard to quantify, but as a starting point, we decided to find ways to measure how people are using Polaris. I showed you this coverage dashboard earlier, where we see the hard numbers, and we can get super granular with this down to the tokens, and there's even more stuff now, which makes the system usage much more tangible. But we also went a bit further and made this actually visible in our experience. So I also gave you a glimpse of that, but we have like these dev UI tools that then allow you to see the hard-coded solutions in our edge. So we're building this to track, but also to learn. And one thing that we already realize is that the problem isn't teams breaking off Polaris to solve unique problems. The real problem is them doing this for small little tweaks, like this layout. This just makes the problem I mentioned earlier more obvious. The system is too rigid. So to help with adoption, we're working on abstracting some of our foundations, starting with layout, to make it easier to build custom solutions within Polaris. And we know that design is a multiplier of user values, so it doesn't matter if a product has a lot of functionality if most users can't use it intuitively. So to enable more intentional design, we recognize that we need to start trusting our users with more flexibility. Our users, I mean designers and developers, because that will hopefully mean they spend less time talking about the limitations and more time about purpose. On the topic of design quality, at Shopify, we actually have now a team with a sole focus on that. Because our leaders recognize it's hard to quantify quality, especially like when it comes to things that are a bit more subjective. But they also know that the fact that it's hard to quantify doesn't mean that those things don't deserve attention and dedicated resources. So they made it happen, and this team is working really hard making things. And you can even see our CEO Toby on Twitter sharing some of the quality improvements like this icon updates. The idea here is to raise the bar for all the teams and show that quality is really important. Because if you truly care about your users' experience, then you should recognize that with more speed, quality ends up decreasing. And quality is hard to perceive, especially when you're rushing, because then that speed kind of creates a tunnel vision and you start having a compromised view on what you're making and just lowering the bar just to ship something. Third and last, the problem the problem about design system becoming a bit of a prison. So to fight this, we're basically refusing to settle down. We want to help designers and developers break the prison walls stifling innovation. We were in a bit of a stalemate. Teams can't innovate because of the design system, and the design system can't evolve without teams pushing those boundaries. So we decided it's time for someone to break that stalemate and to make a move. So beyond making Polaris more flexible and encouraging teams to push it forward by working directly with them, we are also trying to get closer to where people actually work. For instance, by building tooling that brings our design tokens to VS Code and Figma, and making our documentation easier to consume, easier to search by using less words and more visual examples. If you go to our site today, you'll have an idea where we're going with that. Now, the Polaris team can only do so much, and our moves come with the expectation that then feature teams will make theirs too. It's important to remember that what I mentioned earlier. At the end of the day, a design system can only be as good as its users. So with more flexibility comes more responsibility. That's why on the UX side, we're also trying to raise the bar for the product designers that we are hiring. For instance, we started screening for portfolios more thoroughly for visual design because we want to make sure that we have designers that can think, but also execute excellent solutions. Down to the last detail, we need designers to be the best advocates for design excellence. We need them pushing for a better UX to be prioritized, and we need them to follow through the building of a product. And if they can, even doing PRs with improvements. All of this to make sure that we only ship things that are really up to our standards. For new joiners, to help demystify Polaris, we created some onboarding guidance that helps designers understand how to design with Polaris, including some exercises where we practice extending the system in meaningful ways. That said, ultimately, we really just want people who deeply care about the craft. Because not caring is the worst disservice someone working on product can provide. Now, remember my story from the beginning. My PEG play system was limited, but I made it work for me because as any kid, I cared a lot about playing. On the other hand, Lego has been evolving and expanding for decades. And I think it's fair to say that you can literally build anything with them. For instance, if I want to do something like playing with characters from a show I watched on TV, with Lego, that was really easy. I just had to buy it. But with pegs, not so much. But as any child, I didn't let that stop me. I decided to extend my system and started drawing characters from my favorite TV shows. And then I would cut them out with scissors and make paper action figures out of them. Ultimately, whether we talk about toys or design systems, it's not what you have that matters most, is what you do with it. So I think people working on product need to be more like children and continuously chase for creative solutions for our problems. All that to say, the system doesn't define your solutions should define the system. So start solving the problems and then also think about contributing to your design system. If you want to find me online, this is the way. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. By the way, how's the weather in Portugal right now?
It's not too bad. It's a little sunny. I can tweak my screen just to show you. Oh.
Okay, yeah, because we have quite a lot of people returning from the Web Summit from Lisbon today. Yeah, so I think they will also bring some warm weather from Portugal.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I saw one the question I have online, but first is the question to the audience. If you have any questions, please raise your hands, and Raphael will come to you, and you can ask the question. Yeah. So while you're thinking, I will read the question we received online. Do you share the design system cross-platform? If yeah.
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Yeah. Do you share the design system cross-platform?
Cross-platform, like between web and mobile?
Well,
I guess so.
Yeah, because I don't know. The question comes from online. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. I can try to answer. Like we have a design system for web, and then we have like Polaris for mobile. So it doesn't cover everything. Like the way that we're thinking about design systems is that they should be focused on solving a specific problem. So as an example, like I was talking about how people use Polaris or used Polaris to build internal tools, and that's another thing that we're not like officially supporting now. So we're trying to make the experience really focused.
Yeah, thanks for answering. Another question: how do you resolve contradictory needs, more or less flexibility, etc., of the product teams?
Yeah, so the way that we are approaching that is that like things only come to the system, also only become like systematic when they are solving problems that can benefit most teams. If like there are things that are contradicting, then they can exist as like custom solutions, kind of like snowflake solutions on their product areas. But oftentimes we also try to like align these teams to make sure that like these contradicting things are not affecting the user experience and that they actually make sense. Because sometimes it's just one team wants to build something in one way, another team wants to build it in a different way, but like there is one better solution somewhere in the middle. So just try to like mitigate that a little.
Thanks for a question, and guys, let's applause for José. Thank you.